So, welcome to Not Magic Mushrooms Mead. I guess we're just having a little discussion. We've got a bunch of folks off today, so uh, Quill and I are gonna have a chat about a few things. So, where would you like to start?
Well, how about we talk, or you talk a bit about some of the lore of the Pathfinder game and about the game we're playing in particular, the Bloodlords adventure, not campaign, correct?
Yes, Adventure Path is what they call them.
Yes. So yeah, I as we know, I've only joined the game very recently, so and I haven't, gone back and listened to watched all, 412 previous 4 hour long recordings, to
Yeah.
that's on me, that's on
Oh,
me. But
no problem.
yes, so it would be yeah, it would be helpful to me and perhaps others to kind of get a little bit of the story so far, how we
Yeah.
got background and then how we got to where we're at now.
Sure. Well, I don't know the lore of the Pathfinder world 100% well, but I know bits and pieces, and I've also got the GM core here with some information as well. What I do know is that about 10,000 years before the current time that the adventure path is taking place in, there was a huge cataclysm. So these creatures called the Algothu, which are I don't know if you've come across aboleths in D&D, but they're
Yes.
very similar. I think they were originally aboleths and then they changed the name at some point in Pathfinder 1, probably when they were building their lore. But these Algothu had a big war with these snake folk in the far distant past, and in that war they started raising up some of the primitive like ape creatures on the planet, so making the halflings, making the humans intelligent so that they could use
Hmm.
them as fighters in this war, which they eventually won. The Algothu kind of stepped into the background, pulling the strings and whatnot on this civilization. I'm not sure how far the civilization got. My interpretation and the version of Galarian that we're running is that the humans and various other species on the planet got up to a spacefaring era because Starfinder, their sci-fi game, is very interconnected. So I figure in order for there to be humans in that time, this is what led up to them being these futuristic laser gun wielding spacefaring people. There came a time, which would be around this time when they're spacefaring, that the humans and the elves started to realize that the humans were being puppeted by these Elgothu. The When they rose up and started fighting back and finding the hidden Elgothu and trying to kill them, the Elgothu got pissed. They used they used their advanced technology and their incredible psychic powers to grab a planet killer out of the asteroid belt and just fling it at the planet.
Oh dear.
They are seafaring, so they went as deep as they could and went into hibernation because they knew as soon as that hits, it's going to kill everything on the surface, but they'll be safe deep, deep down. The one of the gods, I think it was the god of magic, stepped in, almost quite literally, taking the hit by the asteroid. She didn't destroy it entirely. Broke off bits. Some of it hits the moon, and a large portion still hits the planet. This is what they call Earthfall, which is that 10,000 years ago, which destroyed the civilizations on the planet. It reshaped some of the continents, and it created the inner sea, which is where most of the adventure paths tend to take place. Ours is a little ways away from that, across the ocean from that, actually. But creates this inner sea and an island which has the remnants of that asteroid. Sorry. Been drinking lots of Cokes. I'm a little gassy right now. Creates the Starstone.
Better out than in, as we say.
Exactly. So, yeah. Kind of human centric, but the humans were, of course, the first to rebuild. They started rebuilding civilization within the first 2,000 years. Then came the other species, eventually the dwarves that nobody knew about, get chased out of the Darklands, the Pathfinder version of the Underdark, by orcs. So orcs are also underground dwellers. Nobody knew about either species until they got chased out.
They popped out of the ground like
They,
daisies.
yeah. Gnomes likewise got chased out of the first world. Nobody knows what chased them out, but they got chased out. And the elves, I didn't mention this before, but elves are aliens. They're from the Galarian version of Venus. So
Whoa.
their Venus, which is called Castrovel, is like the 1950s ideal of Venus being just a beautiful, lush planet underneath those clouds. And that's where they're from. They've got a very alien appearance. They've got really long ears, unlike the Tolkien elves. They don't have whites in their eyes. It's just big black circles.
Sclera. Black
Yeah.
Sclera.
Sclera.
Okay.
So they knew that Earthfall was coming, and they fled back to Castrovel through one of their elf gates, just like the Stargate, just zipping back to
Portal. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming that they were thinking, okay, well, the asteroid killed everybody. The nuclear winter's probably over by now, so let's just go back and colonize the planet and come back to humans, rebuilding civilization. Okay, well, I guess we'll just
Daisy.
go back to this little forest city that we had before. Then, let's see. Yeah, so there was a man, a human named Erodin, who survived Earthfall. He was immortal in that he could die. He was just long lived, like an elf. Survived Methuselah. He survived Earthfall and created the. I I guess it's not a nation. I guess it's like a city-state of Absalom, on the island where the Starstone had landed. Turns out the Starstone can somehow change some people into gods, and he
Ah,
ascended into godhood. It was divined that in a certain amount of time he would return and lead the world into greatness.
now just to backtrack a little bit, this
Yep, go for it.
starstone was this like this asteroid that was going to destroy the planet, and then it
Yep.
was this goddess intervened, but something still hit the planet, and so was there like something within the asteroid, or was it the asteroid itself that like
I think it
what is
was
the
the
starstone?
asteroid itself. I think
Right.
it's. I'm not sure if it's something that was done by the psychic powers of the Elgothu or if it is just a special metal or something like that, but something inside
Interesting.
that asteroid left the Starstone, which has this magical power. It could have even been because of the goddess intervening that it left something in there. I think she was the goddess of magic.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I
Because
find
when
it,
I was making my character,
yeah,
and I had to like, there's a section on the character sheet that says, the god,
yeah,
deity or
deity,
whatever.
yeah,
And so, I was going through some of the ones you suggested, and I was reading about this starstone, without any context. So I was
yeah,
like, oh, so some of the gods in the Pathfinder world are like, I suppose, natural, organic gods,
yeah,
and others are sort of manufactured,
yes, yeah,
which is kind of funny because just a little diversion away from Pathfinder.
mm-hmm.
I have a character, a D&D character that is like their stance on gods is that they're kind of unimpressed by gods because
Yeah,
they believe that all gods were mortals who somehow found their way up. So it's like, well, anyone can become a god.
mm-hmm.
Gods are just people like you and me. So I think that's funny that that attitude is basically the reality of you know a percentage of the gods in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
You know,
I find it really interesting that there is one god that was literally a rogue AI that ascended to godhood by finding the Starstone.
oh dear.
So they were like, that's one thing that makes me think that they were pretty advanced, that they
Mm.
had AI and stuff like that, and androids that occasionally pop up that were left over from pre Earthfall. Some of them somehow come from the Starfinder version world. Just a little diversion there is that in Starfinder, the planet of Galarian just disappeared and left a space station in the orbit.
Oh,
So
orbiting
there's
around nothing.
there's a not orbiting around nothing, orbiting around the sun in the
Oh,
orbit
oh, I see.
where
In
Galarian
place of
was. Yeah, in
Valerian.
place of
Right, I
Galarian.
understand.
It's it's because of something called the gap that nobody knows where Galarian went. There was a period of
It just
time.
slipped between the sofa cushions. It just
Yeah,
slid back there, and we don't know what happened to it. It's there with the
yeah,
remote and my spare sock.
exactly.
That's
It's
interesting.
interesting. I'm learning a little bit because I'm listening to a Starfinder actual play, and they occasionally touch
Mm.
on some of this stuff. The gap where everybody forgot the last however many 100 years just gone.
And if that podcast would like a shout out, they can contact us. We'll work out a deal. We'll slide that name right in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were talking about a rodent. Um,
Yes.
it was prophesied that he would return and lead the world into greatness, or maybe just lead that country into greatness. Um, but he didn't come back. The year that he was supposed to come back, nothing.
No.
It says here, with that, the reliability of prophecy died. Galarian was racked by storms, war, and supernatural devastation as the god's death marked the beginning of a new age, a time of uncertainty, but also a time of opportunity. This is the age of lost omens, an age in need of heroes like never before. So that's where
Sweet.
we're taking place in, is this age of lost omens, because prophecy didn't work.
Mm.
Um, in this area, so our game is taking
Yeah.
place in a country in the I guess it's not necessarily a continent. It's part of a continent with multiple countries inside it, called the Impossible Lands. Um,
Out of
specifically, where
curiosity, do we have a map? And is it possible to maybe share it in the course of this recording, or is that too complicated?
that is a good idea. If only I hadn't made the cameras so big. Uh,
Oh, you can just replace me for a minute.
let me
I don't mind.
grab. I will just cover us up for a little bit so that we can show the impossible lands. Uh, and I will copy image address. I'll drop it in Discord for you to open up and take a look. Assuming it works. Oh, yeah, it just dropped the picture right in there. Perfect. So,
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
our game is taking place in Geb, which is kind of in a state of not quite Cold War. It's cooled down from Cold War. The war ended some time
Lukewarm
ago.
war.
Lukewarm war, with the neighboring country of
Tepid
Nex.
war. That's what it is.
Yes. The mana
Sorry. Carry on.
wastes. The mana waste is what is left after their war, because it was a magic war.
Mm.
So it left a it put a number on the planet. There are a lot of mana mutants in there, just mutated animals, and I think it's also what created the flesh warp ancestry. Just people who have mutated. Uh,
Mm.
it's pretty interesting. They can have like a mouth on their neck and weird stuff.
It reminds me very much of in D&D Fifth Edition. Um, I prefer the Eberron setting to
Yeah.
the Faerun setting, and so you have Eberron rising from the Last War, and part of that end of that war was a mysterious sort of it's kind of spoken in obliquely as if it was like a nuclear explosion or something, but
Yeah.
yeah, on there's the what they call the Morning, which
Mm-hmm.
is a country called Seer, was completely, I might be mispronouncing that, so nobody call me out, but it was yeah, it was like it's now a no go zone, and magic gets all fucked up in there and stuff like that. So, and yeah, mutants and monsters and things. So yeah, it's fair. This strikes me as similar, but not the same. It's
Yeah.
still its own thing.
I think Pathfinder started before Eberron. I think Eberron was created during fourth edition, and
Yes,
Pathfinder
I think
was
you're right.
created as as a result of the creation of fourth edition and the complete dropping of everything third edition. So
Yeah.
that's where that came from.
Those halcyon days where we were all very happy with what was happening.
um,
Yes,
so yes, Geb and Nex, they are both magic empires. Geb
named
was,
after their founders, I believe.
yes, their founders who just continued to live on. Nex, I believe, was a I believe Nex was just a powerful wizard. Geb was a necromancer.
Right.
Let's see, yeah, an archmage Nex, and then Geb was a necromancer. So he would send in his people, and when they died, he would just raise them up as zombies and send them in again. Um,
There
Nex
is
ends
no
up,
escaping death.
yeah. So Geb attacks the Nexian capital of Quantium. Interesting name. Killing thousands of people, and Nex disappears.
Mm.
Who knows where he went? Geb was apparently so in despair that he couldn't kill his rival that he ritualistically killed himself, but because of his despair and the ritual suicide, he came back as a ghost. So he's still around.
So the lesson we take away is if you're going to unalive yourself, don't do it as part of a big ritual.
Exactly.
Just keep it simple.
Um, he is, well, Geb is not exactly a nice person. It looks like in 3890, Geb abducted someone's corpse from some knights and reanimated her as a lich to become his queen. So
Mm.
forced marriage, not a good look there. Um,
Consent is always important.
exactly. 1,000 or so, not quite 1,000 years later, we're getting close to where we are. Um, the gates of the refuge of Nex open in Quantium. Not entirely sure what that means, but it is stoking rumors that Nex is going to come back, which of course gets Geb kind of thinking. Um,
A little bit excited.
that is in 4716. 4718 we can ignore, but 4719, the Lich Queen Erasni abandons Geb, um,
You go, girl.
making the Ghost Necromancer have to return to actively managing his country instead of leaving it to her and his counselors.
So he kind of married her, but also hired her as a reluctant
Pretty,
project manager.
pretty much, yeah.
We've all been there.
And then 4722 is where we started our game. It's only been, I think, a
What are
couple
those numbers,
months.
Mark? Like
So there
four thousand seven
was,
hundred ninety-two years from.
from its Absalom Reckoning, which I believe is, let me go to the GM core. I think it is. Yes, it's. The dates are based on the year that the country of Absalom was founded. So
Okay.
it goes into the negatives toward Earthfall, and then the positives after the creation of the country.